It was just another Tuesday evening at Charlie's Diner, a small but cozy restaurant nestled in the heart of downtown Chicago. The place buzzed with activity as patrons enjoyed their meals under soft, yellowish lights. The air smelled of sizzling burgers, freshly baked pies, and strong coffee. At the center of it all was Lisa Carter, a hard-working waitress in her late 20s. She moved between tables like a whirlwind, balancing trays full of food and drinks without breaking a sweat. Despite the chaos, she always managed to flash a smile at her customers, even when they were rude or impatient. Lisa had worked at Charlie's Diner for 3 years now. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. And more importantly, it helped her take care of her younger brother, Ryan. He was studying engineering at a local college, and Lisa took pride in knowing that her sacrifices allowed him to chase his dreams. Every tip she earned went straight into savings for tuition, fees, or emergencies. Life hadn't been easy for Lisa since their parents passed away 5 years ago, but she never complained. Instead, she focused on keeping things running smoothly for herself and her brother. On this particular night, however, fate seemed determined to test her strength. As Lisa approached table 7 with a tray loaded with burgers and milkshakes, disaster struck. A clumsy patron accidentally bumped into her from behind, sending the tray flying. Food splattered everywhere, landing squarely on the lap of a sharply dressed man seated nearby. He jumped up instantly, his face turning red with anger. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, brushing off bits of lettuce and ketchup from his expensive suit. "Do you even know how much this cost?" Lisa froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm so sorry, sir," she stammered, setting down the now empty tray. "Let me get you some napkins." But before she could finish her sentence, the diner's manager appeared out of nowhere. His name was Mr. Harris, a short, balding man with a temper to match his height. He glared at Lisa, his face contorted with fury. "You've done it again, haven't you?" he snapped, ignoring the fact that the accident wasn't entirely her fault. "How many times have I told you to be careful? This is unacceptable." "I didn't mean to," Lisa began, but Mr. Harris cut her off mid-sentence. "Enough," he barked, loud enough for everyone in the diner to hear. "You're fired. Get out of my sight." The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward Lisa, who stood there, humiliated and speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes as she untied her apron and handed it to Mr. Harris. Without another word, she walked toward the exit, trying desperately to hold back her emotions until she reached the safety of the alley outside. Unbeknownst to Lisa, someone else in the diner had been watching the entire scene unfold. Sitting quietly in a corner booth near the window was Ethan Cole, a self-made billionaire known across the country for his tech empire. Tonight, though, he wasn't surrounded by assistants or bodyguards. He wanted peace and quiet, a rare luxury for someone like him, and Charlie's Diner seemed like the perfect spot to blend in unnoticed. Ethan rarely ventured out without attracting attention, but tonight he'd chosen simplicity: dark jeans, a plain black sweater, and no flashy accessories. He scrolled through emails on his phone while nursing a cup of black coffee, occasionally glancing around the room. That's when he noticed Lisa. There was something about her demeanor that caught his eye, not just her efficiency or warmth, but the way she carried herself despite clearly having a tough day. When the commotion started, Ethan looked up from his phone. Like everyone else, he watched as the tray slipped from Lisa's hands and crashed onto the angry customer's lap. But unlike the others, Ethan's gaze lingered not on the spilled food or the shouting man, but on Lisa herself. Specifically, on the necklace hanging around her neck. The pendant shimmered faintly under the diner's fluorescent lights, its intricate design unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It looked ancient, almost otherworldly, with patterns etched into the metal. That seemed to shift slightly depending on the angle. Ethan couldn't explain why, but the sight of it sent a jolt of curiosity through him. What was it? Where did it come from? And why did it seem so important? As Lisa hurried out of the diner, Ethan felt torn. Part of him wanted to follow her, immediately to ask questions and learn more about the mysterious necklace. But another part reminded him to stay cautious. After all, Jumping to conclusions based solely on appearances wasn't wise, even for someone as successful as him. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled upon something extraordinary. For the rest of the evening, Ethan found himself distracted. He barely touched his coffee, instead replaying the incident in his mind. Who was Lisa Carter? Why did she wear such an unusual piece of jewelry? And most importantly, what secrets might it hold? By the time Ethan left the diner, his mind was made up. He needed answers. Whether it was mere curiosity or something deeper driving him, he knew. One thing for certain, Lisa Carter and her enigmatic necklace were worth investigating further. Little did he realize, however, that this decision would set off a chain of events neither of them could have predicted. As Ethan stepped out into the cool Chicago night, he glanced down the street, half expecting to see Lisa still lingering nearby. But she was gone, leaving only the memory of her tear-streaked face and the image of that mesmerizing pendant behind. The next morning, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Lisa and the strange necklace she wore. It wasn't just the design that intrigued him, it was the way it seemed to glow faintly, almost imperceptibly, under the diner's lights. As someone who had built his fortune by recognizing opportunities others overlooked, Ethan knew there was more to the pendant than met the eye. He decided he needed to find her. Using his resources discreetly, Ethan tracked down Lisa's address, a small apartment complex on the outskirts of Chicago. By mid-afternoon, he stood outside her door, rehearsing what he would say. When she finally opened it, her expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. She didn't recognize him at first. After all, he'd blended into the background at the diner the night before. But when he introduced himself as a concerned citizen who had witnessed her firing, her guard lowered slightly. "Look, I know you probably don't want to talk to anyone right now," Ethan began, his tone calm and sincere. "But I saw what happened last night and I wanted to check if you're okay." Lisa hesitated, unsure whether to let this stranger into her home. Her instincts told her to be cautious, but there was something genuine about the way he spoke. Reluctantly, she stepped aside and invited him in. Her apartment was simple but cozy, with mismatched furniture and shelves lined with books and photographs. They sat down in the living room and Lisa offered him a cup of tea. For a while, they talked about ordinary things, her job, her dreams, and how hard it had been to juggle work and taking care of her younger brother. Ethan listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that made Lisa feel heard in a way she hadn't in years. Eventually, Ethan steered the conversation toward the necklace. "I noticed you were wearing something interesting last night," he said carefully, not wanting to sound too nosy. "It looked unique." Lisa's hand instinctively went to the pendant around her neck. She hesitated before answering. "It belonged to my grandmother," she explained softly. "She gave it to me when I turned 18. According to family stories, it's been passed down for generations." Ethan leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Do you know anything else about it? Like where it came from or what it might mean?" Lisa shook her head. "Not really. My grandma used to tell me wild stories about it being part of some ancient civilization, maybe even magical or alien-made. But honestly, I never believed any of that. To me, it's just a reminder of her, something to keep close because it makes me feel connected to my family." Ethan nodded, though his mind raced with possibilities. If the pendant truly was as old as Lisa suggested, it could hold untapped potential, or secrets far beyond human understanding. He tried to mask his excitement, not wanting to overwhelm her. Instead, he offered a suggestion. "Would you mind letting me take a closer look at it?" he asked gently. "I have access to some advanced equipment that might help us figure out what it's made of. No strings attached, I'm just curious." Lisa frowned, unsure. She trusted Ethan enough to share her story, but handing over such a personal item felt like crossing a line. Sensing her hesitation, Ethan quickly added, "You'd be with me every step of the way. And if we discover anything, you'll decide. What happens next? Your family heirloom stays yours." After a long pause, Lisa agreed. She removed the necklace and handed it to him, her fingers brushing against the cool metal one last time before letting go. Ethan took it carefully, examining it closely. Even in the daylight, the pendant seemed to shimmer faintly, its intricate patterns shifting subtly as though alive. Over the next few days, Ethan arranged for private testing at a high-tech lab he owned. He brought Lisa along, explaining each step of the process so she wouldn't feel left out. Scientists ran scans analyzing the pendant's composition and energy output. At first, the results were inconclusive. Then late one night, something extraordinary happened. One of the machines detected low levels of energy emanating from the pendant, energy unlike anything recorded on Earth. The material itself defied classification, containing elements not found in nature or human engineering. Ethan stared at the data, his heart racing. This wasn't just an artifact. It was evidence of something far greater. When he showed Lisa the findings, her reaction was a mix of awe and fear. "What does this mean?" she whispered, staring at the glowing screen. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so," Ethan replied thoughtfully. "But it's definitely special. Whatever this is, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. It could change everything we know about science, history, even our place in the universe." Lisa swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the implications. Growing up, she'd dismissed her grandmother's tales as fanciful stories meant to entertain. Now faced with undeniable proof, she struggled to reconcile her memories with this new reality. As they left the lab that night, Ethan turned to her with a serious expression. "We need to protect this," he said firmly. "If word gets out about what we've discovered, people will come looking for it. Not everyone will have good intentions." Lisa nodded, her grip tightening around the pendant as she slipped it back over her neck. "I understand," she murmured. "But what do we do now?" "For starters," Ethan replied, "we stay vigilant. Keep this between us for now, and we prepare for whatever comes next." Over the following weeks, Lisa and Ethan grew closer. They spent hours discussing theories about the pendant's origins, bouncing ideas off each other late into the night. Ethan admired Lisa's resilience and intelligence, qualities he rarely encountered in his high-powered world. For her part, Lisa appreciated Ethan's honesty and willingness to treat her as an equal, despite their vastly different backgrounds. But as their bond deepened, so did the sense of unease surrounding the pendant. Strange things began happening. Equipment malfunctioned during tests, shadows moved where no one stood, and unfamiliar faces appeared in crowds whenever they ventured outside. Someone, or something, was watching them. One evening, as Lisa prepared dinner in her apartment, Ethan received a call from his assistant. "Sir, I think you should know," the voice on the other end said urgently. "There's chatter online about your recent activities. A rival corporation may have caught wind of the pendant. They're already mobilizing teams to track you down." Ethan's blood ran cold. He thanked his assistant and hung up, his mind racing. They were running out of time. Grabbing his coat, he rushed to Lisa's apartment, knowing they had to act fast. When he arrived, he found her sitting at the kitchen table, absently tracing the pendant with her fingertips. She looked up as he entered, sensing the tension in his demeanor. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. "We need to leave," Ethan said without preamble. "Right now. They're onto us." Lisa's eyes widened. "Who's they?" "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted. "But whoever they are, they won't stop until they get their hands on this." He gestured toward the necklace. "We can't let that happen." Without wasting another second, Lisa grabbed a small bag and packed essentials: clothes, toiletries, and a photograph of her grandmother. Meanwhile, Ethan secured the apartment, making sure they left no trace behind. Within minutes, they were out the door, disappearing into the night. As they drove away, Lisa glanced down at the pendant resting against her chest. It shimmered faint. Everything changed the moment Lisa handed Ethan the mysterious pendant. What started as curiosity quickly evolved into a journey neither of them could have anticipated. Together they uncovered secrets that challenged everything they thought they knew about the world, and themselves. Lie in the dim light, its presence both comforting and ominous. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was part of something, bigger, but she also knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger. Lisa and Ethan spent the next few days moving from place to place, trying to stay one step ahead of whoever was following them. They checked into cheap motels, avoided public spaces, and communicated only through encrypted messages. Despite the constant fear of being discovered, they couldn't ignore the growing mystery surrounding the pendant. Every time they thought about its origins, new questions arose. Where did it come from? Who made it? And why had it ended up in Lisa's family? Ethan decided they needed answers, and fast. He arranged for another round of tests at a different lab, this time taking extra precautions to ensure no one could trace their movements. The facility was located deep underground, accessible only through a series of secure tunnels. It was one of Ethan's most secretive projects, designed specifically for researching anomalies like the pendant. When they arrived, Lisa felt a mix of awe and apprehension. The lab was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Rows of sleek machines hummed softly, holographic displays floated in midair, and scientists moved around with quiet efficiency. Ethan introduced her to Dr. Rachel Meyer, the lead researcher overseeing the analysis. Rachel was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense attitude and an obvious passion for her work. "We'll start by running more detailed scans," Rachel explained, adjusting her glasses. "If this thing really is emitting energy, we need to figure out exactly what kind and where it's coming from." Lisa nodded nervously, clutching the pendant tightly in her hand. She still wasn't used to letting others examine it, but she trusted Ethan, and she knew they didn't have much choice. As the scientists prepared the equipment, Ethan stayed close to Lisa, offering reassurance whenever she looked uneasy. The first set of tests confirmed what they already suspected. The pendant contained materials not found on Earth. Its composition included elements that defied known chemistry, suggesting it might have been crafted using technology far beyond human capability. Even more surprising was the energy signature it emitted, a steady pulse that seemed almost alive. "It's like it's communicating," Rachel murmured, staring at the data streaming across her monitor. "But with what, or whom, we can't say." Ethan frowned, his mind racing. "Could it be alien?" he asked quietly, glancing at Lisa. "Or maybe part of some ancient civilization we've never discovered?" Rachel shrugged. "Both possibilities are on the table. But there's something else." She hesitated, scrolling through the results. The energy patterns match fluctuations recorded during unexplained phenomena, UFO sightings, crop circles, even supposed hauntings. Whatever this thing is, it's connected to forces we barely understand. Lisa listened silently, her heart pounding. Her grandmother's story suddenly didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. What if the pendant truly was a relic from another world, or another time? And if so, why had it been entrusted to her family? As the hours passed, the team delved deeper into the pendant's secrets. One experiment involved placing it inside a containment chamber lined with sensors. When activated, the chamber flooded with electromagnetic waves designed to interact with the pendant's energy field. To everyone's astonishment, the pendant responded, not violently but gently, as though acknowledging the waves. "It's reacting," Rachel whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. "It's not just absorbing the energy, it's adapting to it." Ethan leaned closer, his eyes wide with fascination. "Can we decode the response? See if it's transmitting any kind of message?" Rachel nodded and began typing furiously on her keyboard. Moments later, a series of symbols appeared on the screen. Strange, intricate patterns that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "What does it mean?" Lisa asked, stepping forward to get a better look. "I don't know yet," Rachel admitted, "but I think we're dealing with some form of communication. This isn't random noise, it's deliberate." The revelation sent chills down Lisa's spine. If the pendant was communicating, who or what was it talking to? And what did it want? As the day wore on, Ethan and Lisa discussed their options. They couldn't keep running forever, not with unknown forces closing in. At the same time, they couldn't risk handing over the pendant to anyone without understanding its true purpose. They needed leverage and a plan. Ethan suggested creating a decoy. Using the data collected during the tests, they could fabricate a replica of the pendant, complete with a simulated energy signature. If their pursuers believed they had recovered the real artifact, it might buy them enough time to figure out what to do next. Lisa agreed, though reluctantly. She hated the idea of misleading anyone, but she also recognized the necessity. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's make the decoy. But promise me one thing. We don't use it unless we absolutely have to." Ethan nodded solemnly. "I promise." Over the next several days, the team worked tirelessly to construct the replica. It wasn't easy. Replicating the pendant's unique properties required cutting-edge technology and precise calculations. But eventually, they succeeded. The decoy looked identical to the original, right down to the faint shimmer under certain lights. When tested, it emitted a convincing imitation of the pendant's energy signature. With the decoy ready, Ethan and Lisa prepared for the next phase of their plan. They would return to Chicago, setting a trap for whoever was after them. By revealing the fake pendant publicly, they hoped to draw out their enemies and expose their motives. It was a risky move, but they were out of alternatives. Before leaving the lab, Lisa took a moment to thank Rachel and the rest of the team. "You've done so much for us," she said sincerely. "I don't know how to repay you." Rachel smiled warmly. "Just make sure you stay safe. And remember, if you ever need help again, you know where to find us." As Ethan and Lisa drove away from the lab, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. They had uncovered incredible truths about the pendant, but those truths came with immense responsibility. Whatever happened next, they knew they couldn't face it alone. For the first time since this journey began, Lisa allowed herself a small flicker of hope. She glanced at Ethan, then down at the real pendant resting against her chest. No matter what dangers lay ahead, she felt stronger knowing she wasn't facing them by herself. Together, they would protect the pendant and perhaps uncover its ultimate purpose. Little did they realize, however, that their actions were about to trigger events far greater than either of them could imagine. The plan was simple, or at least, that's what Ethan had told Lisa. Return to Chicago, create a diversion using the decoy pendant, and expose those chasing them. But as they approached the city limits, reality began to sink in. This wasn't just about solving a mystery anymore. It was about survival. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound louder, and every stranger potentially dangerous. They decided to split up temporarily to minimize risk. Ethan would handle logistics, arranging for the decoy to be unveiled at a high-profile event where their pursuers were sure to take notice. Meanwhile, Lisa would lay low, keeping the real pendant safe until the right moment. It was risky, but they both knew it was necessary. Lisa returned to her apartment late one evening, hoping to retrieve a few personal items before disappearing again. She hadn't been back since the night she fled with Ethan, and walking through the door felt surreal. The place looked exactly as she'd left it, simple, cozy, untouched. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a life without chaos, without secrets, without running. Then she snapped back to reality and started packing. She stuffed clothes, toiletries, and a photo album into a backpack, careful not to make too much noise. Just as she reached for the last item, a framed picture of her grandmother, she heard footsteps outside. At first, she thought it might be neighbors or stray cats. But then came the unmistakable sound of someone trying to pick the lock on her door. Her heart raced. Grabbing the pendant from around her neck, she quickly hid it in a secret compartment behind a loose floorboard near her bed. By the time the intruders burst in, she was standing in the middle of the room, pretending to look surprised. "Where is it?" demanded one of the men, his voice cold and menacing. He was tall, dressed in a black suit, and flanked by two others who immediately began tearing the place apart. "I don't know what you're talking about," Lisa replied, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. One of the men grabbed her arm roughly. "Don't play dumb. We know you have it." Lisa's mind raced. Who were these people? How had they found her? And how could she get out of this alive? Before she could respond, a familiar voice called out from the doorway. "Let her go." Ethan stepped inside, his expression firm but controlled. He held up his phone, showing the screen to the men. "You're looking for this, aren't you?" On the display was an image of the decoy pendant, glowing faintly against a dark background. The lead man narrowed his eyes, then signaled for his companions to stop their search. "Hand it over," he growled. Ethan shook his head. "Not here. If you want it, meet me tomorrow at the tech gala downtown. Bring your boss, and no weapons." The tension in the room was palpable. After a long pause, the man nodded curtly. "Fine. But if you try anything funny, neither of you will leave alive." With that, they turned and left, leaving Lisa shaken, but unharmed. Once they were gone, Ethan rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" he asked, his concern evident. Lisa nodded weakly. "I'm fine. But how did they find me?" "They must have tracked my movements," Ethan admitted grimly. "I underestimated them. That won't happen again." He helped Lisa gather her things, then led her to a safe house he'd prepared earlier. It was a small, nondescript apartment in a quieter part of the city, stocked with everything they might need for the next few days. As they settled in, Ethan explained his plan in detail. "The gala tomorrow is our chance to turn the tables," he said. "These people are desperate to get their hands on the pendant, which means they'll show their true colors when they think they've won. We'll use the decoy to draw them out, then expose them publicly." Lisa listened carefully, still processing everything that had happened. "And what happens after that?" she asked quietly. "Even if we succeed, there's no guarantee they'll stop coming after us." Ethan hesitated. "We'll deal with that when the time comes. For now, we focus on staying alive and protecting the real pendant." That night, neither of them slept much. Lisa lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. She thought about her grandmother, about the stories she used to tell, and wondered if she'd ever imagined her granddaughter would end up in such a situation. She also thought about Ethan, how far he'd come to help her even though they barely knew each other. There was something comforting about having someone to share the burden with, someone who believed in her. Early the next morning, they finalized their preparations. Ethan wore a sleek suit, blending seamlessly into the crowd of wealthy attendees, expected at the gala. Lisa stayed behind, watching the live stream of the event on a laptop while keeping the real pendant close. They stayed in constant contact via earpieces, ready to adapt if anything went wrong. The gala took place in a grand ballroom adorned with chandeliers and gold accents. Guests mingled freely, sipping champagne and discussing the latest advancements in technology. Ethan waited patiently, scanning the room for familiar faces. Sure enough, within an hour, several suspicious individuals arrived, including the man who had confronted Lisa the previous night. When the time was right, Ethan made his move. Standing atop a small stage reserved for presentations, he addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight. I have something extraordinary to share, a discovery that could change the course of human history." A hush fell over the room as Ethan held up the decoy pendant. Its faint glow caught the light, drawing gasps from the audience. Cameras flashed and murmurs spread like wildfire. Among the crowd, the men in black exchanged knowing glances, inching closer to the stage. "That's it," Ethan whispered into his earpiece. "Get ready." From her hiding spot, Lisa watched nervously as the scene unfolded. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Multiple groups converged on Ethan simultaneously, each claiming ownership of the pendant. Arguments broke out, accusations flew, and soon the entire room was in disarray. Ethan seized the opportunity. Activating a hidden microphone, he broadcasted the confrontation to everyone present. "This is why we can't trust power-hungry corporations," he declared loudly. "They'll do anything to control technology they don't understand, even destroy each other." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Reporters scrambled to document the scandal, while security teams struggled to restore order. Amid the confusion, Ethan slipped away unnoticed, reuniting with Lisa shortly afterward. Back at the safe house, they collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but triumphant. It worked, Lisa said, breaking into a relieved smile. They fell for it. For now, Ethan replied cautiously. But this isn't over. Whoever sent those men will regroup, and next time, they won't underestimate us. Lisa nodded, her fingers brushing against the pendant still hanging around her neck. Despite the danger, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever mysteries the pendant held, she was determined to uncover them, not just for herself, but for the legacy of her family. As they sat together in silence, planning their next steps, one thing became clear. Their journey was only beginning. After the chaos of the gala, Ethan and Lisa retreated to a remote cabin deep in the mountains. It belonged to an old friend of Ethan's who owed him a favor, a safe haven far from prying eyes. Surrounded by towering trees and crisp mountain air, they finally had time to breathe and reflect on everything that had happened. For the first time in weeks, they weren't running or hiding. They were simply together. The cabin was small but comfortable, with creaky wooden floors, a stone fireplace, and large windows that let in streams of golden sunlight during the day. Outside, the world felt vast and peaceful, untouched by the greed and danger chasing them. Inside, however, the weight of their mission lingered. They knew the decoy pendant had only bought them temporary relief. Sooner or later, their enemies would realize they'd been tricked, and when they did, the hunt would begin anew. But for now, Lisa and Ethan focused on regrouping. They spent hours talking about what they'd learned so far, the pendant's mysterious energy, its connection to unexplained phenomena, and the possibility that it might hold answers to questions humanity hadn't even thought to ask. Each conversation brought them closer, not just to understanding the artifact, but to trusting each other completely. One afternoon, as they sat by the fire, Lisa turned to Ethan with a determined look. "We can't keep running forever," she said firmly. "If this thing is as important as we think, then we need to figure out how to use it. For good." Ethan nodded slowly. "I agree. But using it means learning more about it first. We don't know enough yet to make any decisions." Lisa hesitated before speaking again. "What if we shared it? Not with corporations or governments, but with people who could help us understand it without wanting to exploit it?" It was a bold idea, one that carried risks of its own. Sharing the pendant meant exposing it, and themselves, to scrutiny. But keeping it hidden wasn't solving anything either. After some discussion, they decided to reach out to a select group of trusted experts, scientists, historians, and researchers known for their integrity and dedication to ethical work. If anyone could unravel the pendant's secrets, it would be them. Over the next few weeks, Ethan used his connections to arrange a meeting in a neutral location, a secluded research facility in Canada. The team they assembled included Dr. Rachel Meyer, the scientist who had helped analyze the pendant earlier, along with others whose expertise ranged from archaeology to quantum physics. Together, they formed a coalition dedicated to studying the artifact responsibly. When the day of the meeting arrived, Lisa felt nervous but hopeful. She and Ethan traveled to the facility under strict secrecy, ensuring no one could track their movements. Upon arrival, they were greeted warmly by the team, who listened intently as Ethan explained the situation. Lisa, meanwhile, held onto the pendant tightly, feeling its faint warmth against her skin. "This is unprecedented," one of the researchers murmured after examining the pendant. "It challenges everything we know about science and history." Another added, "If handled properly, this could lead to breakthroughs in energy, communication, even medicine. But it has to be done carefully, with transparency and accountability." The group agreed to collaborate, dividing tasks based on their areas of expertise. Some focused on decoding the pendant's energy patterns, while others studied its physical composition and potential origins. Lisa stayed involved throughout, sharing stories passed down by her grandmother and offering insights that only someone deeply connected to the artifact could provide. As days turned into weeks, progress was slow but steady. The team discovered that the pendant's energy pulses seemed to align with celestial events, solar flares, lunar cycles, and even distant star activity. This suggested a link between the artifact and the cosmos, though the exact nature of that connection remained unclear. Meanwhile, Ethan worked tirelessly to ensure their efforts remained confidential. He set up encrypted communication channels, monitored for leaks, and coordinated security measures to protect the facility. Despite his wealth and influence, he approached every task with humility, recognizing that this project was bigger than himself or anyone else. Through it all, Lisa found strength she didn't know she had. Growing up, she'd always seen herself as ordinary, just a waitress trying to make ends meet. Now she realized she was part of something extraordinary. Her family's legacy, once dismissed as mere folklore, had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the smallest among us can carry greatness within. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Lisa stepped outside to clear her head. Ethan joined her moments later, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea. "You've come a long way since that night at the diner," he said softly, handing her a cup. Lisa smiled, gazing at the stars. "So have you. I never imagined I'd end up here, with you, with all of this." "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. "But I'm glad we're in it together." They stood in silence for a while, savoring the moment. Then Lisa spoke again, her voice filled with resolve. "No matter what happens next, I want to honor my grandmother's memory. She believed this pendant had a purpose, and now I believe it too. Whatever that purpose is, we'll find it, and we'll make sure it changes the world for the better." Ethan nodded, his expression serious yet kind. "We will, together." In the weeks that followed, the team made significant strides in understanding the pendant. They uncovered evidence suggesting it might be a key to unlocking advanced knowledge. Knowledge that could benefit humanity if used wisely. However, they also realized that such power came with responsibility. Sharing it openly risked misuse, while keeping it hidden denied the world its potential. Ultimately, they decided on a compromise. The pendant would remain safeguarded, accessible only to those committed to ethical exploration. A foundation was established to oversee its study, funded anonymously by Ethan, but operated independently to prevent bias or corruption. Lisa played a central role in guiding the foundation's mission, ensuring it stayed true to her family's values. As life began to settle into a new rhythm, Lisa reflected on how much had changed. She still missed her old life, the simplicity of working at Charlie's Diner, the comfort of routine. But she couldn't imagine going back. She had found purpose, friendship, and courage she never knew she possessed. And she had done it all while protecting something truly remarkable. For Ethan, the experience transformed him in ways he hadn't anticipated. His success had always been measured in dollars and deals, but now he understood the value of trust, collaboration, and doing what was right, not just what was profitable. He and Lisa grew closer with each passing day, their bond forged through shared struggles and triumphs. Years later, when asked about the pendant, Lisa would smile and say, simply, "It taught me that even the smallest things can hold the greatest power, if you're brave enough to believe in them." And as she looked around at the lives touched by their work, the advancements in technology, the deeper understanding of our place in the universe, she knew her grandmother would be proud. Far away, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, something stirred. Perhaps the pendant's energy had reached farther than anyone realized, or perhaps it was simply waiting for the next chapter in its story to unfold. Whatever the case, one thing was certain: the journey was far from over.